this lesson, I want to show you how to use the color range selection to go from this to this. It's actually very simple. Let's give it a try. I'm starting with an image found at pexels.com by Anna Schvetz, and I'm going to start by downloading the medium 1280 by 920 resolution, and I simply want to say thanks, Anna. I'm in Adobe Photoshop on Windows, and I brought my image in. It shows up as my background layer. I'm going to duplicate that layer by right-clicking on it and choose Duplicate Layer, and we'll just name it Background Copy. And that way I protect the original image. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to isolate the subject from the background onto a new layer. That'll make it easier for selecting the dress that we want to turn from red to blue. I'll go to the Select menu, and I'm going to choose Subject. And the artificial intelligence is working. You see the little round wheel going around here. It's positioned over our neck at this point. It'll take a few seconds, and then it selects the image that it thinks is the subject or the foreground. And it does an amazing job with that. So what I'm going to do now with that selected is go to the Layer menu, choose New, Layer via Copy. And I now have a new layer in my Layers palette. It's named Layer 1. I'm going to rename it as Woman. And so I can work on just the subject, not worry about anything in the background. Now you might think the best tool here is to use the Select Color Range tool. And I find the color range to be very difficult to work with, especially on complex images. And the skin tone, of course, has red in it. So there are some options here. We can choose reds, but you can see it's getting some of the arms and some of the skin tone. If we were to say OK here, it did an OK selection, but didn't get the dark areas. I'm going to deselect by doing Control D. Let's go back and look at that one more time. So oftentimes what we do with color range is we can do sampled colors. And take the eyedropper, and you can click in an area. That's going to get most of the red dress. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, or you can select this little plus eyedropper to add to it. I'm going to take this dark area in the shadows, but it really selected a lot more. And that's not going to work very well for me. I can change the fuzziness down and reduce some of that, but I'm still getting a lot of the skin tones. I'm going to cancel. So I'm going to try another technique. And sometimes you have to try different techniques to find out which one's going to work best on a particular image. I'm going to choose the Quick Selection tool. Now the Quick Selection tool uses a brush, and you can change your brush size using the square brackets on the keyboard. So the right square bracket allows me to enlarge the brush, small square bracket, make it smaller. That's true of most of the brush tools in Photoshop. So I have a large brush. You'll see the plus sign in the center there. That's because I've got the Add to Selection option selected. And that's okay because nothing's selected, so we're going to make a new selection even with that. Now as I come over to the right-hand side, I'm getting the shadows of the dress. Notice that it selects the dark area behind the dress in the other layer. And that's okay because this layer's transparent in that area. So as soon as I let go of the mouse, it's going to snap back and eliminate those transparent areas. Now we can make our brush size smaller using the left bracket. I'm going to come down and just get this little bit of area between the sleeve and the arm. It's in the shadow. I want to come back and get more of the dress. Now if you happen to get more than you want, again we're going to see that transparent area snap back into place, but I got the arm. So I can take the Subtract from Selection, come in and select the arm and get rid of that. I'm going to make my brush smaller again. And just try to see if I can get just the fingers here. I missed a little bit of the dress there and a little bit of the dress here. So this is a game of going back and forth between plus and minus, or add to and subtract. So again, I'm going to come back down here. Now I'm adding to my selection. I'm just going to see if I can get just that little bit there of the dress behind the arm and the sleeve area down here. Okay, that's pretty good. And I didn't quite get the area of the dress at the very edge, and I'm still got part of the neck. So again, I'm going to go to the minus. Actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a different tool. Sometimes you want to mix your selection tools, and I think this will work really well with the polygon lasso tool. We haven't really looked much at that, so I'm going to come up here and choose the polygon lasso, and I'm going to add to my selection. I'm going to start down in the corner where the dress meets the sleeve, and I'm just going to select the polygon area of the edge of the dress. Now it's going to get part of the transparent pixels, and that's fine because those will not be changed as we color because there's nothing there to color. And I think there's a little bit of area where the dress may comes up here at the behind the neck, so I'm just going to select that. And I've got a little bit along the edge of the neckline. Now I want to subtract from my selection. So I want to get the neck area here taken out of the selection. And that all looks pretty good. So let's see how we did. I'm going to go to the image menu and choose adjustments, hue and saturation. We're going to change this to blue. So a couple ways we could do this. We could colorize and change the hue and the saturation and the lightness. And that doesn't look too bad. The other way we could do this is not colorize it. Actually, let me cancel and bring this back. I'm going to cancel and go back, and so I get a fresh hue and saturation dialog. So if we don't colorize, we can just change the hue. And it might seem sort of strange we're going down to the red. But really what we're doing is adding a tint. So that's about the color blue that I want. I'm going to say OK. Now let's hide the marching ants. See how we did. So there's a little bit of red area just along the left edge of the dress here. Otherwise it looks pretty good. So the question is the red at the top and on the left-hand side of the dress because we didn't make a good selection on our subject layer, or is it bleeding through from the background image? So let's consider if it's the subject layer. We can actually turn the other layers off, maybe be able to tell. I don't see any red there, but I see a little bit of red here on the bottom of the dress. So remember a trick that we did earlier was we took our selection. So I'm going to control click on the thumbnail to select everything. Go to the select menu, and I'm going to modify and contract it either 1 or 2 pixels. We're going to do 2. That moves the marching ants in. And now we're going to go back to the select menu and choose inverse. That'll get the transparent area in 2 pixels into our image. And we'll go to the filter and select blur, Gaussian blur. And I'm going to blur this just a little bit. I think probably 2.4 pixels might be enough. I'll settle on 2.2. I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to hide the marching ants, Control H. And that did pretty good. I don't see very much red there. Now let's turn on our background layer again, and we can see there's some red that has returned. So when we made the original selection of our subject, it missed a little bit at the edge. So how do we fix that? I'm going to go to the background copy, and let's take the clone stamp tool, and I'm going to alt click just above the shoulder. That's where I'm going to copy from, and I'm going to come down to the edge of the dress. I'm just going to paint. And we kind of got rid of that area. Let's try the same thing over here on the left-hand side. I'm going to take a smaller brush using the left bracket. So I'm going to alt-click just to the left of the dress, and then I'm going to just paint with the brush down the edge. And that looks pretty good. That's our image.